Welcome everybody, Red Arrow 23 here, time for another addition to the Boom Beach Playbook. Where today we're going to be adding the left shields on Outworks. It's usually the opening hit, and this is going to be demonstrated by Flight. Let's boom this beach! So as you can see, Flight's going to be showing us this one. We're using AZ with Everspark. Don't necessarily need Everspark for the main purpose of the hit, but let's have a look. Played all the way through as usual. Got a little bit of rocket launcher range on the beach. Got a nice flare landing. Using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boats of Zookas. It's going to be flaring on up to the rocket launchers. You can either tag or flare this rocket launcher. As long as you don't lose the delay, you can flash kill it. Quaboom! And then you can just take the others from the dead zone. Nice and clean. And then we can flare up to where we're going to be killing the shields from. Obviously start smoking before you get in the range of these defenses. Don't want to lose a delay on them if you can help it. And then from here, all we're going to be doing is one shock repeated, and we're not going to flare onto the shields. We're just going to let them take out everything. Keep repeating that shock, and we should be away. So here we go, cleared out all those cannons, starting to work on the shields now. A little bit of boom cannon and power cell action, but that's all good because the majority of the Zookas are taking out those shields. Now that they are down, we can start ignoring those Zookas. Unfortunately, we're not going to look after them today. And then we're just going to be clearing out mines and doing any universal remoting or other extra things that we might be doing, like grenadiers or whatever. In this one, we're going to be URing that rocket launcher to make the core rush a little bit easier and clearing some more mines. So there we go. And I guess he's just going to not deploy his 8th boat. There it is. Straight into rocket launcher fire. Ruthless. Okay. Oh, we do have the one hero Zooka there left, but that's all good. Alright, so let's have another look and break it down a little bit more. So, first of all, when do we use this hit? So, we can use this hit assuming that once we get to the top, it's only going to be one shock, because otherwise if it's 2 shocks, it's going to be a lot of GBE. If you're going to use more, I will bring out a video in the playbook on how to rush them. From inside the barbed wire, or you can start clearing defenses around the outside and then get in. Obviously makes it a little bit harder. Sometimes there's a laser around here, which will obviously ruin not having to use a shock over here. If these are machine guns, they will come in range, I believe, of the Zookas, so you might have to shock the rocket launcher and these machine guns in one shock. But yeah, let's have a look. He's only going to be using 7 boats of Zookas. Obviously the more the merrier when we're up there, because we're just clearing. We're not sure exactly how much damage they're going to be doing. We just want as much firepower in there as we can. And I think the main reason he only bought 7 boats for this particular hit was because he was going to be doing that universal remote at the end. And sometimes, well, when you run out of troops to deploy and you don't use your GBE fast enough, your attack might end. So he's holding on to that one boat so that the attack won't end, because it's still waiting on you deploying that last boat, and then do his universal remote, and then he can launch his troops. I would usually just bring 8 boats for this attack though. So here we go, flaring on up. So you can see that the rocket launcher range is just getting onto the beach. He did peek out the left side and lost the delay on the rocket launcher. That's all good. So we've done a flare landing, and then we flared up right in this 9 o'clock or just above 9 o'clock position. You can tag this rocket launcher on the 3 o'clock rocket launcher of this quad before you go. which will help us to flash kill it, because that's what we're going to aim to do here. And you can flash kill it with less than this amount of boats. If you are using 6+ boats, you want to double smoke that end part, and then either flare on, or we're going to automatically target it if we have tagged that defense. You can see that they sort of walked quite nice and tightly through those power cells, so it's not too hard to smoke for. And there's nothing else in range, so what we can do is just sit in that dead zone of the left 3 rocket launchers. See how close that dead zone is. And we can flash kill the outside rocket launcher, then take our time, taking out whatever we want to. Gathering a little bit GBE, but we don't want to take too much from the core rusher, and then we can flare up. So the flare goes directly up into that top corner. Let's have a quick look. Right up in that corner. And the Zookas form quite a nice little pack. But we are going to be in range, start to come in range of these rocket launchers and shock launchers, so make sure that you are smoking for that. And then we usually throw these 2 smokes nice and early, and the reason we do that, even a little bit earlier than this one, is because we don't want our Zookas to get there and then spread, because they're going to spread like crazy. So we don't want too much time for that to happen, and then we can throw out our shock. It's going to be 1 shock repeated on the right hand side. If you are going to use critters, I suggest you use them straight away. Throw them first, because then that's going to distract and you're going to have more Zookas for longer, if that makes sense. If you drop them late, then you might already be down to 80 Zookas, and then you're protecting those 80 Zookas rather than protecting your 104. That 1 shock repeated needs to be, you'll see that shock come in when we do it next time. It is a little bit of a way. We're playing it on 1 speed. You see the shock timer and the tap. So you can see where that tap was, and it pretty much at the perfect time. We're not using any flares, and the Zookas are just clearing house. They're just clearing all the cannons, boom cannons, and the shields as they get to them. Make sure you're timing that shock really nicely. Let's have a look at one more timing. So around about 9 o'clock, so let's have a look. And tap, so it's just after 9 o'clock, and it was perfectly timed again. You don't want to either miss this shock or miss the timing. He has let them turn around once, so see that shock was a little bit later, and the shock launcher turned, and that's fine. As long as it's not firing, you don't want to give it that much time. And did he need 1 more shock? Nope, looks like he got that shield down, so we don't need to protect those Zookas anymore. They're not going to achieve anything else useful, so we can just let them go. So make sure that that shock is probably the hardest part of the attack. Make sure that you get that position right. Chuck it in a friendly challenge and just practice it over and over. You do have the option of throwing a medkit on the barbed wire. Depending on the damage boost, it's usually fine. Once the Zookas stop in the barbed wire, they won't be damaged by it, so it works out really well. But if they are in the barbed wire, their shots will go slower, so just keep that in mind. But it's not a big deal. Just let them fire, keep that shock going, and everything will be gravy. After that, we're just looking at making the next attackers hit easier. So the next attacker is usually this attack is the first attack from what I've seen, and the main reason we take out these rocket launchers is to free up these cells for anybody who needs the GBE. We don't necessarily need to take them out for our attack. We could just go all the way up and clear out those shields, but it helps out the next attacker. If you want to go up and just take them, then that works fine. It's not a big deal. It's just thinking about their next guy. And then we got a barrage on the mines just in front of the walk up. These ones are level 22, they're not always, but we just want to be trying to clear out those mines up to the top shields. So a couple of these 2 boom mines I think are the ones that need to go. I don't think you need any more than that, so 1 artillery will clear those. So now all we're looking at is trying to make this core rush easier. We don't have a lot of GBE because we use a ton of shocks. We did collect a few cannons to give us some extra GBE along the way, but we don't have a ton. So we're going to use universal remote on one item, I believe. He's tagged this rocket launcher. We're going to be core rushing from 9 o'clock, and with the spread, this one is the most likely to get in range. So this one's slightly lower as these ones. You're going to have to shock those, shock these. Sometimes you can clear out these rocket launchers, depending on how the other hits go. These mines are usually maxed, as are the ones up here. So you might want to help out. If usually there's more defenses in around 9 o'clock, so make sure you're trying not to tag defenses there, because when the core rusher goes in, they're going to spread slightly differently. It's a lot nicer if you don't tag anything. But here we're going to be doing this universal remote, so we flared within Sparky range of that rocket launcher, and we have tagged it so that we know it's a little bit cheaper. If it's cheaper for one artillery rather than your, this is what is, he did a flare landing, then he flared up, so 1, 2, 3 flares. So this is his 4th flare. It could be even more, depending on how your flares went. Usually it's cheaper to tag, and that's why we usually tag. So we tag that rocket launcher. As soon as that smoke expires, the universal remote will come into effect, and then everything is going to be firing into it. He's used his GBE on clearing some of those mines. He has tagged some of the defenses, which is a little bit inconvenient, but we will have to live with it. That's fine. And then that's pretty much the hit over. I think he's just going to suicide some Zookas over here. Great work, flight. But yeah, so there's great opening hit. Taking all, the main part of the hit is to take out the left shields. If you can do that, you're golden. If you can get like 3 out of the 4, I mean, it's still a good hit. So let's have a look at it again. Going to be doing a flare landing on the left hand side of the beach, getting a smoke about in that top left corner. So you want to keep the delay on this right rocket launcher if you are planning on flash killing it. You may have to shock it in some situations. If not, we can flash kill it from here, making sure that it's what we're targeting, and then we can destroy all the other rocket launchers from the dead zone and flare up to above the cannons or just on that wall there, smoking before we get in range of these launchers and throwing those smokes nice and early, perhaps a little earlier than that. And then as soon as we get up into the spot, we're using critters on the cannons and 1 shock on the rocket launcher shock launcher. Slow it down into 1 time just so you can see the timing of everything. Get that perfect smoke shock placement and repeat it if you can. Well, you're going to do it. You're going to repeat it every time. If there's more than 1 shock, you might have to look at a different approach, but this should work out well because you should be able to have enough GBE to do about 4 shocks, maybe even more. And the Zookas are just going to carry on clearing out. Once the Zookas have stopped in the barbed wire, they don't fire slower. You can see as they're moving, they turn blue and their shots turn blue. And that's when they're firing slower, is because they're moving through, or they have just been moving through, because they don't fire until they stop. So clearing some mines for the next hitter, and then we're just going to be using Sparky to clear out this 1 rocket launcher, which will cause a little bit of an issue on the core rush. Not really part of the main hit that we're trying to break down today, but it's something that you need to be thinking about for the next hitter. So nice work, flight, good demo of the left shields on Outworks. No flares, just pure clearage. So comment down below if you take out these shields any differently and why you do it that way. That'll help me out a lot. And give us a thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't, and subscribe for more Boom Beach.